Hello, and welcome to our week 10 lecture. Um, so a couple of quick announcements. I'm going to, oh, well, first, okay, I'm going to be sending out another announcement from our Office of Instruction, and it is a survey request. So it's a California Community College survey request, and if you can take the time to answer it, it's all anonymous and it will be posted, or excuse me, the results never get shared, but it does help the community colleges determine kind of what's going on with our student population, what your wants and needs are. So I'll be sending that out as probably, maybe not as an announcement, but maybe as an email. So like I said, it's your choice to take it or not, but they are looking for as many students as possible. So that'll be going out in a little bit. Otherwise, so um, week 10, we looked a lot at our copyright. We talked about um, intellectual property. We've been really delving deeply into some of those more complex rights to information. So information has certain protections that are inherent. So when we create something, whether it's a poem or a song, we automatically get attribution. So it belongs to us. So we don't really need to go out and say pursue a patent. If you were looking to, if you did say an engineer drawing or you wanted to sell an idea. So if you maybe developed a piece of software that had specific conceptual ideas and manufactured elements that were unique, then you could pursue a patent. But I wanted to make that clear from, say, copyright. So when we think of copyright, we think of like our little small c with the circle around it. So I'll talk about that more in just 1 minute. But first, some other overview. We looked at plagiarism and we talked a lot about academic honesty. I extended that conversation just a little bit more, since you will get it mentioned to you many times. Kind of like if you ever take out student loans and you sign your name on the dotted line and there's all that fine print, knowing kind of what that fine print means is helpful. So when we go, and especially in our digital age where everything is on the internet and it's so very easy to copy and paste, we really need to make sure that we aren't accidentally plagiarizing. Unintentional plagiarization is what I see, like, 95% of the time. And it's students not understanding that when you copy and paste that text into a paper, that there are machines. There's one that Merced College uses called Turnitin, and the Turnitin will actually use algorithms to match up the text that you copy and pasted from the internet into your paper. And then it'll say, oh, this is something that you copied and you didn't provide attribution, so you can't turn your paper in this way. So there are a lot of exceptions that are provided to you, especially as students. So making sure that you know what those exceptions are and using them to your advantage will help you avoid mistakes. All right. So I also wanted to point out there's a lot of embedded content in our lecture and research guide module this week. So this is where I'm going to chunk up some of our lectures here. So today I'll be, I just provided this how to do our assignment, and I'll also be providing this lecture. And then after, I'll be uploading a new module. It's more of like an addendum to our week 10 about our annotated bibliography. So the annotated bibliography is a summative assignment. It's going to be due in about 2.5 weeks. So you'll have some time to work on it. An annotated bibliography is what we use the citations, and then you provide like a little literature review. So you'll summarize and also provide a little reflection on why you chose the item that you did. So I'll be asking for specific amounts of articles. So for example, I'll want at least two scholarly book chapters and 2 journal articles. But I'll be adding that portion, that lecture portion in, and you can find that here. All right. So there's also this important research guide that provides lots of outlined resources for our MLA portion. Okay, so let me come back through and let's talk just a little bit more about copyright. I feel like our understanding should be pretty well scaffolded in when we started off even with banned books. Okay, so when we thought about that intellectual property and censorship, the other ways that we can create and protect our intellectual property is through copyright. So while plagiarism is more the copying and stealing of ideas, copyright is this method that it's a policy statement, and it's a legal statement. So it's a principle of American law that the author of a work may reap the fruits of his or her intellectual creativity for a limited period of time. And copyright literally means to copy. The term has come to mean the body of exclusive rights granted by law to authors for protection of their work. And those exclusive rights include reproduction, distribution, public performance or display, the right to make derivative works, and in the case of sound recordings, to perform those works publicly, either through digital transmission like the radio or online, or to license others to engage under specific terms and conditions. It doesn't extend to everything. So copyright can't be applied to like a slogan or a principle. So like you can't say copyright a guiding policy. Policies are more just missions or their guidelines. And if you want to know more about how to apply copyright, you can always look under the United States Copyright Office, where they have lots of much more granular information about copyright and how it works. So about us, copyright.gov. If you were to go through and say, you wanted to find out information about getting something copyrighted, you could always contact them. There are forms and a process that is necessary to actually apply for copyright law or for your item to be copyrighted. Okay, and there's also this really excellent article. Oh, sorry, I'll have to wrap that back in. This is an excellent article written from Huffington Post, and it goes over the ways that public domain work. All right, so fair use, we're moving into exceptions. So when we're looking at copyright, those exclusive rights, well, if only one person can use something, then how does society contribute? How does society contribute to it or engage with it? So there are exceptions, and those are called fair use. And those are ways, there are basically four ways to determine that how a copyrighted work can be fairly used. So the purpose and character of the use. Oh, and these are like measurements of how much a person can push the boundary, push these exceptions and limitations. So for one, to determine if fair use is being used, the purpose and character of the use. So is it commercial? Is it nonprofit? So if it's nonprofit, it's more likely to be fair use. If it's commercial, it's less likely to be fair use. The nature of the copyrighted work in relation to its factor of creative expression or imaginative work. So this can mean that if you're looking at, if you're using your derivative work, so if you're copying or using an analysis or using a portion, what percent of that portion of that creative expression? Factual expressions often get a little less fair use, whereas expressive works, you can think of it as it has a little bit stronger protections. Amount and substantiality of the portion in relation to the copyright work as a whole. So how much you use. So if you use, say, like for textbooks, we generally at the library, we get away with allowing students to make copies in the copy room of their textbook pages that they need. They can't go and copy the entire textbook. We generally say 10%. Now, there's no hard and fast rule for that, but that is the guidance that we've been given. And the thing about copyright and fair use is that it's really very gray. There's not a lot of cut and dry. And the only people that get to say are the courts, and nobody wants to end up in court. Also, this is an important issue too. So the quality or expression of the small amount. So if you say were to copy a Nike ad, and you you copy the swoosh, and maybe you say just play it, that would be copyright infringement, because you would be violating the fair use by striking at the heart of the expression. Whereas if you maybe went and just did Nike, but made the font different and put the Nike goddess on your advertisement, they couldn't sue you, because the heart of the expression is quite different from Nike, even though there might be some people that still associate Nike with the goddess Nike and the word Nike. So, and then finally, affect the use upon the potential market value of the copyright. So, is my using that Nike expression with the goddess Is it going to detract from the Nike Corporation swoosh? Is it going to infringe upon their marketability with their current swoosh? See, as you can see, these are very complicated gray areas. Copyright law is archaic, and it's there because it does need to be. Anybody that has ever created something knows that you don't want anybody to copy your work. You worked hard to make that. You used your talent, used your hard-won skills, and it's not just free. You paid a lot of money to learn how to do that. You worked really hard. You spent a lot of time. It's not fair that somebody else just gets to go and use it. So generally speaking, you always need permission to use copyrighted works, and that often comes in the way of money. We can often consider those like royalties, right. So again, having a general understanding of the way copyright works is very helpful. These little videos throughout. I like this Stan Muller one. He talks really fast. I note that here. So I try to kind of outline some of the main parts that I wanted you to pay attention to. All right, great. So lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit about public domain, because I think that public domain is a fascinating area where information really can almost be transformed. All right, so a good understanding of public domain is if we're thinking about an item that was published around, before or right around 1924, and these are books, plays, music, probably some movies now. And they've dropped out of the public, or excuse me, they've dropped out of copyright. So copyright is anything, the lifetime of the artist plus 70 years. Okay, so then in 1989, Congress went and changed the definition of copyright, and retroactively changed all of the works that were going to drop out of copyright as well. So there's been a period of time, and as you'll read in this Jennifer Jenkins Huffington Post piece, that these items got kind of sucked back into copyright. So what the 1989 copyright fix was that you could, previous to that 1989, you could always opt out of copyright. So about 90% of works never opted into copyright. The other 10% were protected under, I think it was like 55 years, and then you dropped out of copyright. But the other 90% just went straight into the public domain, meaning they could be used and transformed. We're talking about like travel photos, jam sessions, witty prose or poems. None of those were protected under copyright, and then people could freely share them and transform them. So after 1989, 100% of works automatically get life of the author plus 70 years, or 95 years. I think that's 95 years is if they reapply for copyright. So that means that's another, almost 100 years after the death of the author, that educators, artists archivists, remixers, scholars, anyone want to use, want to freely use. So these do have a name. They're called orphan works, and orphan works are still, they're that 90% that they never got used. They were automatically put into copyright. The author dies. Nobody in their estate or family took care of them or reissued them under copyright. So they never fall into the public domain. So they never get discovered. And so in the 20th century, there are only 2% of the works between 55 and 75 years of age that retain commercial value. For the other 98% of works, no one benefits from their continued copyright protection. And the public loses the ability to adapt, transform, preserve, digitize, republish, and otherwise make new and valuable uses of these forgotten works. So if you've ever encountered a very old movie or maybe a work that wasn't very popular but had a cultural impact, unless the publishing company that owns the rights to that work see a commercial need for them to reprint that book, it just goes out of print. The important part of public domain is that it's made available to scholars and archivists for digitization, for moving into new mediums. So as we've seen, Google Books has a worldwide digitization program where they will go and locate public domain items, and then they'll scan and make them available for the public. So there's another good example of Nabokov and his Lolita, and that these exclusive rights keep getting pushed back. So, there's that other question as well of, who owns this work? Nabokov's been dead for 40 years. His estate doesn't necessarily publish it, but who benefits? Well, the publication houses, the publishing houses. So it's that question of who owns these works and how we get access to them. Okay, so Creative Commons, I feel like if you watch this video and learn a little bit more, it's really helpful for those of us that create and will want to put a license on and determine how we want our information to be used. So watching that video, these open source licensing, it's a very important concept, especially in education. We use a couple of open education resources, and these are part of that open source licensing. These are created by educators, and they put them out in the open internet, and they say, we don't care. This is our information as experts that we've created over the years, and this is our textbook, and we are giving it to you to use. We use one of these. It's our SUNY text, our Bernard text, and our Bernard et al., I should say. And that's created by the State University of New York Library. They make it open to the internet, and we take advantage of their expertise. And it's also, I can remix and reuse portions and not use portions. So it's a really exciting source and ways that the internet has made things very creative. You will also, when we go into the ePortfolio, you will also be asked to connect, to put one of these license to like your personal learning history, If you decide to upload your concept map, if you decide to upload a poem or a blog entry, you can always stick one of these licenses on there. And it basically says that if anybody, if for instance, somebody does copy and paste your work and put it into their paper and use it, plagiarize it, um, that you have licensed that and said, no, you can't copy my work. This work belongs to me, but you could give me an attribution. You could cite my poem or my blog post and give me attribution. Okay, so that was about it for the copyright portion. We have this sort of fun discussion, and I really hope that this was sort of one of the main guiding reflections that I was hoping that you will incorporate into your discussion. So when we're thinking about public domain, and I might just go ahead and add that where I got some of my information from the Duke Law website on public domain. But thinking about information and who it belongs to, thinking about classic works, and if they're not being used, would that author want them in the public domain? Would they, or keeping them hidden from public use and transformative use for well past and basically forgotten, those orphan works? Okay. So that said, we move into MLA. And so for MLA, this is this is a style guideline. So I wanted to point out, I think I have it open. I bought the MLA ebook, and I encourage my students to go ahead and buy this. If you are looking, to supplement your books, maybe you like print books, the MLA handbook, the 8th edition, actually, I did not know until I was going through the MLA website that they're going to be coming out with a 2021 version. So they're coming out with a 9th edition. And I suspect I know why, because they probably have to include a new section on all that open licensure and how to cite those new digital texts. So be on the lookout. But I went ahead and bought this 8th edition. It's 2016. It's nice because you can just click around within. So when we are doing MLA citation, when we're doing APA citation, American Medical Association citation, Chicago, any of them, there's not a lot of memorization that you're going to need to do. There are some skills you need to recognize, but basically you're going to want these manuals, these handbooks to refer back to provide guidance and double check your work. And I liked how they've divided these up. So the mechanics of scholarly prose, names of people, quotations. So this would be an in-text citation, titles of sources. So they really break down. And what MLA, how MLA defines it is called containers. So let's go ahead and take a look. So the core elements are these containers. So this 1, 2, 3, 4, these are all containers. And so basically you're identifying the element to stick in your container. Notice that there are specific punctuation after each one. There's a comma after the title of the work. There's a comma after other contributors, which would be your editor, translator. There's a comma after the version, so perhaps the edition number. There's a number right here for, this might be your issue or journal number, publisher name, publication date, and location. So it is your responsibility to familiarize yourself with a publication like this. So if you aren't able to purchase this, that's okay, because the MLA website does a really nice job of providing those for you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select the website. Now, I bought the print version because I like that navigability. I also, I'm familiar with the print source, so it feels comfortable to me to navigate that way. But here we have this quick guide. I could also say, come up in here and type in quotations or YouTube. And it gives me these, how do I cite a YouTube video? Great, super helpful. So you need to follow, you need to be very literal in the directions that they provide. So here's an example. Here's a Kanye West on Jimmy Kimmel Live that's been posted to YouTube, uploaded by Jimmy Kimmel Live. Here's the full date and then the link. You need to make your citation look just like this. All right. I've also linked in some videos that you'll need to watch in order to do our week 10 assignment. So this is how to set up, this is how to format in a Google Doc. Now, I provide a video for a Google Doc, and I also provide a video for a Word document. And you'll notice that they both do it a little differently. And our assignment is the Word document version. However, I think that it's very important to reflect on the different ways that you can format your paper. And they do mirror each other. So you'll go to your paragraph setup and then select double space. You want to make sure that certain checkboxes are checked, that there's 12 point, double spaced. These are vital steps, because from here on out, this is how everything needs to be turned in. And I'm not just talking in our LRNR class, I mean all of your college courses. Unless your professor, I would say that in your posts for discussion, you do not need to apply these exact MLA rules. If you do include a citation, you build a citation, then it does need to adhere to those citation standards. But all papers moving forward, for your history class, for your psychology class, for your chemistry class, you need to make sure that you are applying these very minimum standards. All right, so watch these videos on building your paper. Now I want to look. Okay, so real quick, I'm just coming back to this formatting tab in our guide here. I wanted to point out that if you need some more examples, Purdue OWL is a gold standard. I've always really enjoyed their. Whoops! I didn't click on Purdue. Sorry. I've always really enjoyed their examples that they use. And their sample paper is one of my very favorites. So I'm going to go to the MLA sample paper right here. And if this was something that you printed out and had on hand, it might not be a bad, 50 cents to print it out and have on hand. So this right here needs to be here every time. So my first name and last name, my professor's name, the class on, and the section number, and then the date. The date needs to be spelled out this way: day, month, year. Next, the title. Always provide a title of your paper. This is a minimum. So if it's a book analysis, Uncle Tom's Cabin. If it's a summary, week 10. It can be very, very simple, but you do need to identify. Just think of it as in terms for your instructor. So if your instructor is going through like 20, 30 pages, they need to be able to quickly look and identify what the assignment is and who is writing it. Also, the header, you always need to include page numbers and your last name. Finally, the works cited. So works cited generally looks like this. It's always alphabetized, okay? Usually by the author's last name, but in this case, if it doesn't have an author, then you're gonna do the title of the articles. Oh, hello. All right, whatever. Moving along, these videos are also embedded in here. We aren't gonna go into creating in-text citations right now, but if you have the time, and I do highly recommend that you make the time to watch this video about how to do an in-text citation. In-text citations are vital transitions and grammar that will allow you to write academically. So for example, if I'm just citing the author and the page number, this is what it's going to look like. If I want to begin with my author and then the quotation and then the page number at the end, this is important to know. What if there is no page number? These are important things to know. These are little styles. My advice for those that don't have page numbers is that you are including extra information. So include the article name. So if you say you have Davis, and then at the end, instead of the page number, maybe you do the article name. These are things that you can look for in the style guide. Okay, and finally, let's talk about the works cited page. Here are those containers. We have our some extra links over here on the left-hand side and more videos throughout. All right. Oh my goodness. Sorry about all the text messages. I don't know how to unlink my texting. Okay, so that said, you'll need to watch all of these, read through these carefully to complete the assignment this week. And look for our final chunk of lecture on our annotated bibliography. If you have any questions about the assignment, make sure you send me an email. I do have office hours on Wednesdays at 10 to 11. So drop in and meet with me sometime. Okay, so that's it for this portion of the recording. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording, and then you can move on and watch the annotated bibliography.